shuffling up and getting ready. Let's go ahead and take it down to there.
Down at the table, who do we have selected? Benjamin Schlicting and Joe Ruettiger.
Yep. Benjamin on the left, Joe on the right. Joe has been a player in the past that has some very good accomplishments. I believe a couple top fours in ICs to go along with it. So looking for a big regional finish here to start off the season. Meanwhile, Benjamin here looking for that win to make it into day 2. Both of these players at 5-1-1, so a loss and a tie to go along with those 5 wins.
Round 8 of Swiss, 5-1-1, needing to find the win. This is the high pressure situation that we were talking about. The players, you can see they're a little bit tired. You can kind of see it, but they're ready to play. And this is where the champions are really, begin to shine, where when everything is on the table, when the chips are down, when you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for that last little bit of mental energy to play one more best of 3, try to last for only one more hour of Swiss to maybe lock in your day 2. You've got to bring your all. So right now the players are just shuffling, thinking about the matchup, thinking about how their deck is going to play out. They don't even know what their opponent might be on just yet. Maybe so far into the Swiss, they might have seen a glimpse or heard some rumors, but it's really hard to say at this point.
That's really where your kind of friend group comes in handy. The more people you know, the more you can kind of help figure out what everyone else is playing. It is one of those advantages that kind of gets missed by some of the newer players. But later on in a tournament like this, you would hope to know a lot, but there's so many people here too that you really can't count it out. And it looks like it's going to be an interesting matchup. So Joe is on the London Mew, as you've been saying, the Pokestop Mew with no Meloetta. But meanwhile, Benjamin, let me tell you. All right, are you all sitting down? You sitting down?
Yes, I'm sitting down. Tell me about this Benjamin.
Inteleon VMAX.
Inteleon VMAX. This is a archetype that we always hear rumors about, like, oh, I swear this deck is good. This deck did good at this tournament that you didn't hear of. My uncle's brother's cousin played this deck, and it was amazing. So now we actually get to see it in person.
And looking at the prizes there, got just one of the Inteleon V in the prizes.
All right, looks good.
Joe, little bit of pieces, some damage modifiers in there. That could be good, but the Cheryl is going to be one of the big important things. If Joe isn't able to take a one-hit knockout on a lot of these Inteleon VMAX, then Benjamin would be able to use that Cheryl to get that all cleared off, especially thanks to Inteleon VMAX being able to bounce the energy to the hand. And here we go, Swiss round number 8. Looks like Joe is starting it off.
Going first with Mew. This is so important, too, to win that dice roll, get to go first, because this London Mew, it has a very big weakness going second. Players have said it over and over again. Trekking Shoes gets rid of the Pal Pad, going to draw another card, doesn't need that Pal Pad right away. Starting with Mew V is decent, but we want to see some Genesis X, and there's the Battle VIP pass. So now Joe is going to absolutely set up here. With the Remoraid only in the active spot, Benjamin is in a little bit of trouble. We know that when Mew does get set up, you are under some threat. Fortunately, without, Elisa Sparkle, you can't get those energies directly out of the deck into play. So not as much early tempo being threatened, but still, when you see such a powerful start from your opponent across the table, you are already thinking about how are you going to match them beat for beat.
This Mew deck, the way it's built, it's a lot better going first now. You kind of had some game plan with the Lessa Sparkle and Melodious Echo from the Meloetta to get a good turn 1 going, get 210, 240 with like a Power Tablet or Choice Belt, but there's no real option for that. So going first for Joe here is going to be really important in this match, just because if you can win this game, lose the second game, you get to go first game 3.
With this list, again, the matchups are really changed. It's not just Mew trying to brute force its way through a lot of matches. You're actually playing a more back and forth game with your opponent, actually trying to see what they're up to, disrupt that, find your windows of opportunity to attack. And when we go across over to Benjamin's Inteleon VMAX deck, this is going to be dealing a lot of like spread damage, right? And raining some damage counters down on these Genesect Vs, perhaps. You know, the Oricorio, which has been frustrating a lot of players, as we've seen over and over on the broadcasts, being able to maybe snipe that down could pay dividends.
Yeah, using that ability, double Gunner to discard a water energy to place 2 damage counters on 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and then its attack Gmax Spiral does 70 plus 70 more if you return an energy to your hand. So not the hardest hitting VMAX we've seen, not as hard hitting as Mew opposite the table, but it is one of those decks where you get to manipulate the board a lot and then use a card kind of like the Metacham V to maybe take an extra turn and then do some more shenanigans with that. But there you see Joe getting that Oricorio down. Like you said, it's a very important card in this metagame.
Once we get the setup like this, I think we've seen every UV so far have this perfect bench setup just like this, and then the Genesects just begin to draw cards, and Joe just drawing all the way back up. Now, once this happens, you get a lot more reactivity, right? You're able to draw out of bad hands and awkward situations. The double turbo energy comes through, and when the damage counters start to build up on the bench, Joe has the option of maybe trying to trigger a Psychic Leap, undo some of that work. So I think that Benjamin might account for that and just try to focus on perhaps the Genesects and the Oricorio. But right now, Quick Ball is going to be the card of choice. And, you know, Sobble's in the deck, of course. We've got Manaphy, which isn't too important. But just going to take a deep look through the deck at first just to see what is available.
It's looking like Lumineon V might be the card of choice. And I bringing out Brawly.
Ah, I see. So just trying to get an equal setup. Brawly just being the supporter version of Battle VIP Pass. Get the rest of your setup in play. And this is perfectly acceptable, especially going second, right? You're able to get this powerful establishing foundational effect for your Rapid Strike deck right before your opponent is able to have a couple extra turns of being able to throw their engine at you.
Yeah, essentially just using the Keep Calling attack, but for a supporter. Searching for 3 basic Rapid Strike Pokemon, putting them on the bench, looking like the Inteleon V, and those 2 Sobbles. So things are good for Benjamin. This is what you want to see for your first turn, but having to go second against a Mew deck like this, it's going to put a lot of pressure on that Inteleon V, and with 1 in the prizes, I think there's only 2 in the list. So if we see a boss's orders coming from Joe, then it could be rough.
And when you assess the bench, right, the Inteleon V is a very obvious target. Cram-O-Matic hits tails, but even if Joe has the evolution in VMAX, maybe tries to find the boss's orders or cross-switcher or what have you, it's great to see. There's a power tablet being burned. We've talked before, Jeremy, about how these Mew players need to be a little bit more decisive about when they promote the power tablets and get that power in, but Joe is thinning down, sees that there is a line here to jump way out ahead in this game and is going to go for it.
Yeah, trying to find that boss's orders or a double cross switcher here, and with that power tablet would be able to take the knockout on that Inteleon V on the bench. So really just trying to thin the hand down enough to where you can find those cards, and Ultra Ball is one way to do that.
Thinning down again, still 2 Genesects left to go. No doubt that Joe is trying to get this knockout, and it's going to be very detrimental for Benjamin. Losing out on the main attacker of the deck. Once you see the Remoraid, the Sobbles, the Inteleon V, you know exactly what your opponent is up to, and you're going to try to go for the KO for sure. Set them way far behind. We've seen it before so many times with just original Mew VMAX, their ability to jump out ahead of you because they are so fast to set up and get this massive tempo.
Well, here is the second Fusion Strike system from Joe here. I think he found the boss's orders.
We'll have to see some players play with their hands a little bit more forward so we can see, but Joe is keeping us in the dark. Goes for a Pokestop. Just gets that set up right away, thinning the hand down even further. Echoing Horn and Rotom Phone picked up off of the Pokestop as well. Rotom Phone is another card that is going to allow you to search even deeper into the deck, put a card of your choice on top, and then just draw it right back with the 3rd Genesect V.
Joe debating yet again Looks like a Cramomatic here.
Ooh, wants to try to discard the Rotom Phone. Hits the heads. Gonna go find that boss's order straps and get that knockout.
Doesn't even want to show us. You're
Maybe
fine.
every time we think that we're locked into like a really strong play, the players have already thought of some completely different play. And I'm wondering if Joe is going to surprise us here once this card is revealed. Is there a different card that you could get? Maybe you don't care about Inteleon VMAX?
Cross switcher.
True,
but,
true.
Yep, here we go. And with that double cross switcher, that means the Inteleon V is going to be knocked out at the end of this turn thanks to that power tablet played at the very beginning.
With the power tablet, and then we have access to, the Cross Fusion Strike into the Techno Blast. It's just a fantastic setup. But overall, I wonder how Ben's going to react to this, right? When you look across now, what is Ben even going to do once this V goes down? It just becomes vulnerable. Every single turn that you try to get the Inteleon set back up, it's under threat to just get gusted up and knocked out. Joe's even going to seal the deal on this turn with a Marnie.
Well, I guess that's one reason to save that boss's orders and use that cross switcher instead. You can Marnie and disrupt your opponent's hand. And with that, Joe has put together quite a turn here to be able to set up and get these first two prizes off the board.
With the Mew VMAXs we've seen over the course of today's broadcast, it's been a much slower, a much more of a wait-and-see sort of list. But this is very reminiscent of just the original style of getting out of the gate swinging and just getting an insurmountable advantage over your opponent.
And with the way Benjamin has built this deck, only the 2 Inteleon V, it's going to be rough, especially if Joe has access to the other cross switchers or a boss's orders to get the other one. If Benjamin even has a chance to bench it, it's still in the prize cards, so you need a way to search out that Hisuian Heavy Ball.
With the 2 Sobbles on the bench, maybe we can get some Drizziles going, find that Ultra Ball, find an Evolution Incense, try to get something set up. But we don't have the luxury. Typically when players are behind, they want to set up 2 copies of their V attacker so that if one goes down, you still have another one that's ready to evolve. But Benjamin does not have that luxury and is in danger of getting the game completely taken away from him at this point. Joe, with 3 Genesect in play, is going to be able to draw through the deck so efficiently to find any cards he needs to bully his opponent down and seal the deal on this first game.
Well, here we see that Evolution Incense, so does have access to a Shady Dealings here, and is going to be looking through the deck.
Yeah, just double checking the prizes, seeing what I can pivot to. Is there something I can do? Hisuian Heavy Ball to find the Inteleon V, very important here.
Yeah,
no, it's V Max in the prizes, right? Yeah.
No, it's the V.
So yeah, that is going to need to be found with the Hisuian Heavy Ball. Fantastic pickup. Once we get that set up, it's just a matter of, is Joe going to be able to boss it up and knock it out again?
Yeah, there we see the Ordinary Rod shuffling back in that Inteleon, just so you can Quick Ball or Irida.
Beautiful. So now with Ordinary Rod putting the Inteleon V back in, we can Irida to fish that out, and it looks like even though it seemed to be a struggle, getting the 2 Inteleon V into play will be somewhat of an establishment here so that if one does go down, you can still pivot to the other.
Yeah, but then you have that Lumineon V sitting on the bench there, not really being able to do much after the fact. And with the Quick Ball in hand, this makes sense, grabbing the Drizzile. You get another Shady Dealings off.
So overall, you can see Benjamin still being very methodical with his play, is under a lot of pressure, but isn't really letting it phase him. He's just going about his game plan the way he needs to. Finds the Evolution Incense off of the Drizzile. Has the Hisuian Heavy Ball in hand still from the Irida. Is going to go find that Inteleon. How many Inteleon variants can we put in one deck?
Well, I think the answer is like 4 different Inteleon. 5 if, or no, yeah, 4.
I know, then maybe we count the shinies. We can just oops all Inteleon, but also has the Capacious bucket. Okay, so we do have a little bit of gas here still. Benjamin is fighting back. Despite that early knockout, has a strong foundation now, and it's just a matter of whether Joe can continue to disrupt this or not. If he lets up the pressure from this point, Benjamin maybe does get set up and starts to rain down those damage counters with the double gunner ability.
Again, with the way this deck is built, though, it's going to be on the slower side to actually get these knockouts, and that's just going to mean Joe's going to have plenty of time to really just draw through the entire deck. And as long as he's able to take a knockout in each of his turns, that it really shouldn't matter too much. But Benjamin does find that Inteleon V from the prizes, so we'll have 2 down on the bench for this turn, and well, Cheryl moved to the bottom along with the boss's orders. That could be useful depending on if Benjamin gets those prizes.
If Inteleon V is able to get promoted, gets knocked out, Joe has 2 prizes remaining, and with the slow way that Inteleon V Max wants to try to line up prizes, Joe has a chance to maybe take a couple single prize knockouts instead. So the prize map is already beginning to favor Joe massively here. There's the draw for turn. Has, again, 3 Fusion Strike systems available, just has to start thinning this hand down. Needs to find one way to bring up an Inteleon V. Boss's orders, there it is. Even though Benjamin had the second Inteleon V in anticipation of this, it still feels awful to get this KO'd, to put Joe down to only 2 prizes remaining.
The power tablet comes down as well for Joe this turn, so that will be a knockout as long as he remembers to retreat. It's always a big thing. If you use Technoblast from the previous turn, you have to reset that attack.
And we've seen players do that before where they announce the attack and it just gets completely canceled out. But that should be no small thing for Joe to do, especially if you've been playing a lot of VMAX.
He could just say, I'm going to retreat, and he won't move it because they're the same exact things. But it is important to point out.
And now here comes an Ultra Ball, just thinning down the hand even further. The boss's orders was already found, but you might as well just keep drawing cards, keep thinning that way. If something were to happen to disrupt this engine at all, you'd be in a position to just naturally have that thing in hand.
Yeah, and you actually see Joe discard the power tablet just because you already know that Luminion V is going to be those last 2 prizes. So you don't need to actually get extra damage out for you. And here we see the first Fusion Strike system of the turn, drawing 3 cards, it seems.
All right, so only 3 cards here, but again, Joe is in such a dominant position. We've seen it before where, especially this style of Mew, just Rotom phones and wants to, Fusion Strike system for 1. They don't care about drawing tons of cards. It has a little bit more play to just manipulate the deck to just get the specific cards that you need.
Joe discarding that Avery. That's one card that you do not want to play on this board state. Benjamin would just get rid of those prizes that you want to take next turn so bad.
Second Genesect V now drawing more cards, finds the Rotom phone, and this, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, you put 1 on top, and this just beautifully sets up for the final Fusion Strike system to get that card of your choosing while thinning down.
What Joe's doing right now is what we call playing around with Roxanne.
True, putting a card on top just to make sure that you draw naturally into it next turn. We've seen players do this multiple times, back in the day with Oranguru.
Oh, I'm not even saying just that, just thinning the deck out. There's going to be like 4 cards left in this deck.
Yeah, but yeah, just does the Fusion Strike system to draw that card that was grabbed from the Rotom phone. Doesn't want to leave it there. And now, after all of those have been expended, it's just a matter of reaching out and taking these prizes. Announce the retreat. Are they going to let him do it? I think there's no takesies, backsies. Hang on.
No, so I can't attack.
No, you already initiated attack.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
they're not going to.
so
Oh, my
he already
goodness.
initiated the attack phase for his turn. So since you're not able to attack. Oh, okay. Looks like Benjamin will allow it.
Benjamin mercifully says, I'll allow it. Joe takes 2 more prizes. As you said, Jeremy, both of those Mew VMAXs are the same. It's just a matter of announcing those plays. But Benjamin's just moving on into his turn now. Has the Shady Dealings Inteleon to find 2 cards. We can get perhaps Irida, Evolution Incense, etc. to get this VMAX in play. But we got to get some energies attached to it as well. That's the other piece of the puzzle.
You're probably going to find something like that Octillery to be able to Rapid Strike search for that Rapid Strike energy.
Mm-hmm.
You can also use the Scoop Up Net found off the Shady dealings to use that Inteleon yet again. Unfortunately, that Scoop Up Net cannot pick up that Lumineon V. That would be pretty broken.
So there is still a lot of play here. You've got your big threat into play finally after, you've been kind of held back for a couple turns. Inteleon VMAX now down. Octillery found from that Evolution Incense. As you said, Jeremy, so now you have Rapid Strike Search to get the Rapid Strike energy. This is going to provide 2 energy to a Rapid Strike Pokemon. So now it looks like our Inteleon VMAX is finally online.
Benjamin finally going like, hey, this is what my deck's supposed to do.
And it did it pretty well, honestly. Joe just had a massive, strong start, had the cross switchers, the boss's orders, and the power tablets to make those knockouts happen. Versus any other deck, you're really not going to be up against that much consistent pressure, I think, right from the beginning. I love protecting Lumineon V as well with the big charm.
Yeah, using that big charm to make it so another power tablet is needed to take the knockout, but with the way Joe is playing, I think he already has it in hand. Yep, their choice belt. And with that, Joe is able to take game 1 here in round 8 and one more win away from punching themselves into day 2.
A quick win indeed. Every time we see these Mew decks take a victory, take one game in a series, there's not a lot of time left on the clock, but that was just a pretty clean masterclass on what this new Mew is truly capable of. It still has that explosive potential when it needs it that it inherited from the classic Mew decks. And if we shuffle the cards and go again, I think that this Inteleon VMAX could come out with a much more devastating start. If you get the tempo on your opponent and you're just sprinkling those damage counters down, setting up knockouts for yourself that you can just reach out and pick and choose as you like, it becomes a much different game indeed.
One of the biggest things is going to be the ability to go first, just getting those VMAX in play before your opponent can get their VMAX in play. You know how you usually like to play Pokemon. Just evolve your Pokemon and do stuff.
And with the new Mew having a massive weakness when it goes second, maybe Benjamin can capitalize on that, carry us to a game 3. Both these players are so excited for this round because they have to get locked in for day 2, but you can see the fatigue beginning to set in. Fortunately, with Mew, a deck that even before this new version came out, you might have already had a lot of practice with and against. You have a strong idea of how it goes. Versus Inteleon, an unproven list that's gotten some shine from time to time and some whispered results. But now with a mulligan, Mew VMAX is going to start with an extra card, and we saw how devastating that truly can be, being one off of a battle VIP pass we needed, being one off that Genesect. This is already looking to be once again in Joe's favor, but Genesect V ending up in the prizes. Anything else detrimental ending up there too?
Got one of the copies of Boss's Orders as well as the Pal Pad, so could be interesting the way this game plays out, especially if Benjamin gets things going the way that he wants to. It's going to be a longer game, but wow, Inteleon V in the prizes again. That just makes Hisuian Heavy Ball even more important in the early game here.
Running such a thin line, that 2-2 is just being massively punished here.
And it looks like Joe's going first. Benjamin wants to be able to keep calling and use that Brawly to get set up going second, and with that, Joe's like, yes, please, I'll take it. I'll go first with my list that needs to go first.
Benjamin doesn't actually seem too flustered by this. I wonder if he's done a lot of practice against the Mew, and that was just an edge case. But it didn't seem like that was an unusually bad game for Benjamin. There was, of course, the Inteleon V that was kind of struggling to get set up, but Joe now is having another opportunity to get this fantastic setup. Mew V #1, Genesect, 2 of those on the bench. Then we just get second Mew V. Then we want Genesect and or Ikorio, and we've got that same setup once again. Double battle VIP pass. Meanwhile, Benjamin, as soon as he takes a look in the deck, is going to see that Inteleon V is missing. I really hope he gets this Hisuian heavy ball and can really let his deck do what it wants to do. If you're going to lose a best of 3, you at least want to make sure your deck is at least accomplishing what you built it to do. And at 5-1-1, he's had success with it already. Maybe the Mew is just a bad matchup that he wasn't anticipating running into too often here.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out in this game 2 here. And one thing I kind of want to touch on that you said a little earlier is this is kind of an unproven list in the sense that Joe doesn't know what he's expecting. You can kind of guess with some of the cards that are normally played, and like Joe may have even tried this deck out, didn't really like it, but that was a while ago. You didn't have much time to really revisit it with all the different decks that are in the format. So we could see something exciting come out of Benjamin's deck, but with the way his hand is, it's a double Cheryl, Rapid Strike Energy, not much else. We're probably going to see it keep calling.
We'll just have to wait. The the Mew deck can whiff, it can brick. We've seen it from time to time, especially with how much presence it's had on stream being played. Any card game, any deck in any game like this, can have all of its important cards at the bottom. So it doesn't matter how much card draw you have. If you still can't get those resources for the first several turns of the game, your opponent just runs away with it. But here we go. Sobble, just with the attachment. Looking through the deck now.
Yep, keep calling is going to find that Inteleon V. Wants to find that second one, but it is hiding yet again in the prize cards. It's a little shy today.
I think that this really showcases Benjamin's strategy. He doesn't mind going second because he, as you said, Jeremy, wants that keep calling. It allows you to do double Inteleon V, so you have that resiliency to getting bossed up. You're always going to get your threat in play, and then maybe use, again, the Ordinary Rod, get those back, and try to keep that threat going and keep your momentum. But 2 games in a row, the second Inteleon V is missing, and it opens up this massive window of opportunity for Joe to get that power tablet, plus the boss. We already have a Mew V with a choice belt on it. So if Joe puts it together again here, I think that Benjamin is unfortunately going to be out of this set. There's the evolution into Mew V Max. There's the double turbo attachment. We only need a boss.
Listen, when Mew starts like this, it's pretty hard to slow it down. And with the switch, just thinning out the hand so you can draw more cards with this Fusion Strike system. Even has the Pokestop to dig a little further. I'm always kind of on the fence if you want to use Pokestop or the Fusion Strike systems first, but really depends on what's in your hand. Like, if you need an item to discard and you have a Cramorant in hand, it's almost always best to go for that Pokestop. But here we see the tablet being used, drawing 4 cards. Needs to find a boss's orders or double cross switcher.
Yeah, Inteleon V, as you said, Jeremy, is not a heavy-hitting V or V Max. Has low HP for a Pokemon V, right? Just 200 rather than the somewhat standard 220. I mean, to be
As
fair,
you look
Mew V
across
has
the board,
180.
it has 180, 190.
You almost don't even worry about the 180 because Mew is just so fast it makes up for it. But you're kind of at a double detriment of having lower average HP, but also being a little bit slower to start taking prize cards. It feels like maybe Benjamin was anticipating a lot more like single prize decks where you can just snipe down their bench a lot more and they don't threaten you as heavily. And as Joe is just churning through the list, picking up these combo pieces, about to make this same situation from the first game happen. You just have to just throw it up to say really unfortunate matchups.
Here we go, Fusion Strike system yet again, this time netting 5 cards. And there is that double cross switcher. Joe played a switch, so is able to free retreat out of it. And with that, takes the knockout on that Inteleon V and still has more stuff to do for this turn.
Yeah, still not even done. You get the knockout target into the active spot, and you still have yet more to do. But there's even still another Fusion Strike system available if Joe can thin down a little bit more.
And the Pokestop if you want it.
Overall, again, Joe's just been in the driver's seat this whole time, game 2 in this best of 3 Swiss round 8. Joe trying to lock himself in 5-1-1 currently. Looks like he's within spitting distance of doing so. Just has to reach out and grab that massive tempo that he enjoyed in the first game. Benjamin's other Inteleon once again in the prizes maybe can set up that same sequence. This is almost a complete rerun of game 1 where you have to ordinary ride to put the Inteleon V back, use the Irida to fish it back out, get the heavy ball in order to get the second.
How's spitting distance work with masks?
I mean, that just means you're even closer to reaching out and getting victory. You don't have to go very far.
There we see another quick ball, thin the hand down yet again, and it's just... these have been the perfect turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3 and turn 4 for Joe. So in all of these games, probably going to see more of the same, and that's just with the fact that this Inteleon VMAX cannot come down on the board for Benjamin.
This is exactly the sort of deck that feels like it's not doing a lot, but when it hits the right matchups, when the meta swings a certain way, it feels like it's such a strong call. We saw something similar with like Suicune way back in the day, or Whimsicott, these lists that nobody's really counted on or that are unproven, and suddenly they find the perfect meta to take a regional and a half by storm before everybody starts to adapt to it. And maybe Benjamin was thinking perhaps 1 or 2 steps ahead of where the meta actually ended up shifting to for this event.
Evolution Incense looking for the Drizzile, but again, Drizzile's going to have to find like the heavy ball and try to get something going. Of course, you can Irida for the heavy ball too. Might as well get some extra cards out of it.
Yeah, so Irida eyeballing the resources in hand. There's a Cheryl. We've got the Brawly, the Rapid Strike Energy. But again, the key, as we've seen with this list, is having to get 2 Inteleon Vs set up. So there's the Ordinary Rod play to put that back into the deck from the discard pile. Evolution Incense, going to find the other Drizzile here. So we can then grab the Irida, make the rest of the play happen. But Joe is set up. And once you get Inteleon V, you're offering, once again, 2 targets. Your opponent can pick one or the other to take 2 more prize cards. And then once Inteleon VMAX hits the stage, wants to start trying to take prize cards, Joe is already in a position to get that 3rd and final knockout.
Listen, I don't know if it's even going to get to that point. We do find that Hisuian heavy ball, so that Inteleon V will hit the bench yet again, but with the way Joe has thinned out his deck, gone through so many cards without having to really discard a lot of resources, he's going to have it.
Exactly. Benjamin has to make a big bet here that I can get this Inteleon V down. It's going to be safe. And against all odds, Joe will not hit the boss, will not hit the cross switchers. And we're going to try to go through. But yeah, just scoops it. Is he scooping it up?
No, I think he just didn't.
He didn't put it back from the heavy ball.
To 6, yeah. So
for a second there, I was like,
it's just a stack of 6 cards. But
I see.
The big charm is in there, which is very important because that would make Joe need another power tablet on top of that choice belt. But
I see. Yeah. So just didn't spread the prize cards out. I was worried. I really was. I do want to see this game play out whenever I see a deck like this that's unproven and has something cool going on with it.
Did the Ordinary Rod get played?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, yeah. So 2 Inteleon V down.
So the magic does happen. The same thing from game 1, but now it's back over to Joe with Trekking Shoes. Gets rid of the Avery, finds a second Trekking Shoes, and decides to keep this one. Must be good. Again, we're just looking for Power Tablet. We're looking for Boss, etc. to get 2 more prizes, and then it becomes a huge detriment, a huge liability for Benjamin to be so far behind in the prize trade. Even with Mew VMAX offering up 3 prizes once it is knocked out, Inteleon VMAX is not built to take these sorts of KOs. It wants to spread that damage around and snipe some of your support Pokemon instead.
And there we see the Pal Pad putting back the Silene for Joe. Just something for later on in the game. It's looking like with the way he's kind of slowed down, doesn't really have much to clear with the hand, and won't really be drawing that much with the Fusion Strike systems. And with the 2 Inteleon V coming down for Benjamin, as long as he has access to the VMAX, at least 1 will be in play, potentially 2 if Joe doesn't have the out here.
So there's 1 power tablet. We still have Fusion Strike systems to work through to find the rest of the resources. Draws 3 cards. And there's Rotom Phone looking deeper into the deck. 5 cards. You pick one to put on top, and then the next Fusion Strike system is going to draw that automatically. And we'll have to see, you know, how far Joe wants to go for this knockout. I mean, if you can find it, you might as well. You're going to draw all these cards anyway. If you happen to get the card you're looking for, that's great for me. If I don't get the card, the specific card I'm looking for, I've still drawn tons of cards and thinned my deck. And so either way, it is a win-win.
Oh, Cramorant finally showing us what the card is off that Rotom Phone. So Cramomatic found off the Rotom Phone here. And again, we'll draw that. Need to discard an item heads flip, but that is a boss's orders or cross switcher away.
All right.
I
So
think
after the shuffle, Rotom Phone puts that card of choice on top.
I think the major difference in this game is not having that Luminion V benched. It's just the free 2 prizes that Joe is able to bring up with that boss's orders or cross switcher and take
just goes
the
for the
knockout.
Marnie. So
And
it looks
so-
like Joe did come up empty after all that drawing, after all that sequencing. Didn't find the right combination of cards to get the knockout, but instead is going to disrupt. If I shuffle your hand back down, maybe you lose out on the Octillery that you were planning on evolving. Maybe you lost out on the Inteleon VMAX you were planning on evolving into. And I'm just going to force you to work that much harder to even complete your setup.
Again, still has access to cross switcher if he draws into it, and with the Pokestop could as well. Again, how much of it is kind of reaching a little bit, but with both of the Inteleon VMAX coming down, that could be a little scary. You get a lot of shenanigans going on with damage counters placed everywhere, but both those Cheryl are on the bottom now thanks to that Marnie. Maybe it's for the best. Benjamin's hand was actually looking pretty sweet if he got a turn.
Yeah, the Cheryl is there for when you get the Inteleon VMAX, you know, or your V with the big charm on it, and you're trying to just offset your opponent dumping resources into it. Because once that sequence happens, you're slowing the game down enough, buying tons of time in order to keep using that, you know, that double gunner ability to keep stacking up the pressure of those damage counters. But Joe is able to just greedily swing through with the power of the power tablets.
Oh.
There's Pokestop. Finds, oh my goodness. The Cramomatic and the cross switchers found here, so Cramomatic can find perhaps the final piece of the cross switcher, hit that heads, and we'll see if we can go off to the races. There's still 1 more Fusion Strike system on that Genesect V to draw more cards this turn. We thought the sequence was going to be done after the Marnie, but that was just the middle stopping point to take a breather. Game 2, 15 minutes left on the clock. Cramomatic going to discard its twin, and we get the heads.
That heads, if that cross switcher is in the deck, that is going to be what Joe finds here. And already playing the power tablet, you already have that extra damage for the turn. You don't even need to attack with this Choice Belt Mew.
And so here we go. Cramomatic finds the card that you want, and here it is. Show it to us. The second piece of the cross switcher combination. Inteleon V comes up. This other Mew VMAX comes into the active. Power tablet is already there. Fusion Strike system just before we attack to get that extra little bit of draw, and another knockout is going to come through.
And so far, Joe has sequenced all of his turns perfectly into drawing everything really needed. Still has that boss's orders last and the prizes there, but
now,
pretty big advantage.
Exactly. Now Benjamin has to just put his main attacker into the active spot and try to fight back against this onslaught. And Joe can just keep wailing on it. There isn't a second Inteleon V to pivot into after you've done some chip damage with the Cheryl. We know because of the power tablet and the choice belt, we can still get these one-shots versus that big HP pull. And we've yet to see an Inteleon VMAX. We got to find it here with the Evolution Incense.
No, Evolution Incense grabbed the Inteleon.
Pardon me.
But we can find that VMAX a bunch of ways, you know? Level Ball can grab that Octillery, and Octillery can Rapid Strike search for it. You can also grab it with the Irida here, which seems like Benjamin is eyeing down the Irida and Cheryl. And from there, you just have to hope Joe doesn't have boss's orders to take up the one prizers off the board and finish off those last two prizes. And we know one is in the prizes. That means one's left in the deck, and we'll have to see which one he actually draws from the prizes. It'll be interesting.
Of course, artillery still an option as well for that rapid strike search. We only saw it one turn in the last game. It was able to find that rapid strike energy, but it can find a lot more of your missing pieces. We've got Irida. Find a water Pokemon and an item, of course. And there it is. The artillery is picked up. And the item here...
Probably going to be an Evolution Incense. If you have one left, there is 4 copies in the deck. Really, because it's so reliant on getting those evolutions in play with that Drizzile, that Octillery, that VMAX.
This list needs to not be disrupted. We kind of saw this weakness show up in like the Arceus decks, right? Where you get your Arceus V, energy attachment, or bust. And this list definitely feels a little similar, where you need to have, 2 Inteleon V on your first turn. It's just both of these games. Inteleon V's been in the prizes. The Hisuian Heavy Ball's been a bit delayed in getting that other one out of the prizes. Running the 2-2 line is just... This is exactly why when you run thin lines of your main attacker, you can get punished. We remember, of course, there was that brief moment in time where Mew VMAX was running like a very thin line as well. You think, I can just draw so many cards, it doesn't matter. And then after a few players really bricked on stream, they said, never mind.
Yeah, and with that quick ball off the Irida, Finance the Sobble is not going to be able to find another V just because it's too risky to even bench it down now. You do have access to that scoop up net, so I believe you can even evolve the other Drizzile that's closest to the deck. It's still been in play this turn.
Okay.
But it is good to save it too. You have the energy on that Drizzile on the bench anyway. Maybe set up an Aqua Bullet.
That could be the play, but it's just we've got this 320 HP Inteleon dangling. Joe has the perfect setup once again, has the Choice Belt, has only used 1 power tablet so far, if I'm not mistaken, so can just very easily power up this Mew.
I believe 2. Maybe even 3 discarded. You do have access to Silene, though.
True.
So a couple heads on Silene, get a couple power tablets put back on top. Maybe you're cooking there. There's no cook, but...
If Benjamin is forced to, go for, that healing option.
Ooh.
So bosses up the artillery, sees that this Inteleon VMAX doesn't even have any energy attached to it. It's not a real threat. If I just take 1 prize here, then I can just take the second prize naturally. Again, maybe with the Silene, put the bosses back in, and then fish them out later. And with the, artillery off the table, that Rapid Strike Search ability is no longer available.
And uses Cross Fusion Strike to copy Max Miracle, takes the knockout, and grabs the boss from the prizes. And that's really going to seal up the game here because Benjamin's not going to have any kind of disruption except for that Roxanne. Okay, maybe I spoke a little too soon.
Okay, so Roxanne needs to be picked up here to disrupt that boss's orders that was just grabbed off the prize cards. If you can put your opponent, there it is, if you can put your opponent down to 2 cards, maybe with the power of the Genesect, it's still not enough to draw back into that switching option. Can Inteleon VMAX hold the fort for 1 or 2 more turns? I doubt it. But Joe, again, piloting this list with just maximum efficiency. Everything, it's not just about drawing the card you want for the turn, but just setting up for your following turns, using that Rotom Phone, getting the right cards if you're choosing to make sure that they are drawn naturally.
Looks like they're discussing something a little bit.
The Choice Belt Mew was the benched one, so the switch already did happen to cleanse the Techno Blast effect.
Yeah, he used Max Miracle last turn. So the one benefit for Joe is that there's not going to be a path to the peak. Against Mew decks, people always say, well, you got to win by just Marnie path, Roxanne path. There's no path to the peak coming down. So those 3 Genesect there. Going to do a lot of drawing for Joe, especially with only 2 cards in hand. And with the way he's thinned the deck out, you have to believe he's going to find that boss's orders. But Benjamin's going to do everything he can to just try and mount something here in this game. Hasn't really just been able to attack that much at all this match. And with that Octillery getting knocked out, there's no easy way to get that Rapid Strike energy into the hand.
This is a list that you can tell really lives and dies by whether it can get set up, whether or not it can get that early lead, and Joe has just completely denied that in both of these games. We've got the double gunner here, sprinkling some damage counters. It's 2 on 2 bench Pokemon of your choice.
Yep, and it's damage counters and an ability, so it goes through Oricorio. Oricorio only prevents damage from an attack. And then Training Court picks up the water energy and a pass of the turn, and now it's up to Joe to find that boss's orders yet again. Can he thin the hand down enough to do it? We'll have to see.
Has 3 cards right now, could very easily find something thin down and just draw back up to 6. Just considering, what do I want to get rid of here? Do I want to activate a Fusion Strike system automatically? Here comes Rotom Phone. 5 shots at just putting the boss right back on top, or the Silene, etc.
And with that quick one, I believe that's going to be it. Yep, boss's orders. No need to retreat. You just use Max Miracle last turn, and with that, Joe Ruettiger, 6-1-1, punches in their ticket to day 2, and still has 1 more round left to go. Maybe they can get 22 match points here and there.
Yeah, seems solid. It was smooth sailing the entire time. There wasn't really any pressure coming from Benjamin. When you're in the driver's seat like that, turn 1, you get to just set up with a double battle VIP pass. You get to do almost a complete retread of the sequencing of the turns here in game number 2. And yeah, Mew VMAX just shows us that even with this new build that is adapted to play a bit more reactive, a bit more balanced, still has that DNA of the tempo monstrosity that once was.
Yeah, Joe played 8 turns total that match, took a prize every turn that they could, and he pulled it out on top. Congratulations to Benjamin. Still not out of it just yet, sitting at 5-2-1. Is going to play another win-in next round. It'll be cool to see if Inteleon VMAX can make it into day 2 or not, but that is something we'll have to see later on. And yeah, Mew doing Mew things.
Yeah, the Inteleon deck, I think that, it's trying to hit some smaller decks, right? Things that want to have a lot of basic Pokemon, a lot of support Pokemon on the bench, snipe those down. If you jump out ahead of, say, something that's relying on a barrel engine, you get those